Good morning, everyone. This is Canna Boomer, aka Patricia Patton, coming to you on the Estro Hayes platform. If you boomers who have come over to join me with my guest, Shira Adler, today, if you're not familiar with Estro Hayes, it's a multimedia company that highlights the lifestyle and businesses of multicultural women in the cannabis industry. And so if you don't know Sarita, Kylie, Saffron, you should get to know them. Hello, how are you?
Hello. I'm well, thanks, Patricia, honey. How are you doing?
Everything's good. So I think we're actually on. We had several little snafus yesterday. But what I'm going to do is double check that we are actually.
Hey, I'm seeing a couple of people, I think. It says live on this end. So,
true,
hey, people.
Check but verify. Good morning, everyone. Oh, I see thumbs up here, too.
All right.
Pop over to be sure, because I am also my own assistant.
And I'm going on. I'm going to tell people right now that we are on Facebook as well, of course.
I'm going to do the same thing. I think I do see us live. There we are. Good. All right. That's really great. I'm happy to have not given up. I want you all to know that Shira Adler is the author of the ABCs of CBD. Yesterday, we had a magnificent conversation. I'm sorry that it wasn't captured, but we will do the same today because both of us know how to both play rock and roll and jazz. So we'll be able to go through many of the things that we discussed. Today, the takeaways that I have a little list here. And I want you to also ask any questions you may have. But what we want to walk away with today is an understanding of whether or not CBD is the same, whether all CBDs are the same. We're beginning to see them in big box stores and in health food stores. Should we just buy anything? Is there a particular brand that's better than another? How can we tell? So that's the second thing, how to understand what you're buying and what's being recommended. What's the difference between an isolate and full spectrum product? Mm-hmm. And then what makes CBD clean? Like, how can we actually identify clean companies if we're not in the business of either creating, growing, or what have you? We're consumers, let's say that. And the last thing is how much to dose, because I've talked to people who have been recommended CBD by professionals, but there's no clear understanding about what will work. Should I take an aspirin a day? So this is where we're starting, but we'll also include your questions. So just pop them in and I'll do my best to manage that process. So first of all, tell me about the book, how you came to write the book, Shira.
Well, this book, I'm showing you the one that exists right now, but actually as of 2 days ago, the ABCs, here, I'll put it right in front of my face, ta-da! The ABC of CBD is actually already out in its revised edition. It just went to print. It's available at Amazon. You can visit my website, shiraadler.com, and get all that info about what the book is and why it matters. And it really does matter. And the reason I wrote it is that I've, before I'm a CEO and founder of my own company, Shira Synergy, before I'm a healer, spiritual counselor, wellness advocate, media personality, I'm a mom. And my journey began years ago, before anybody kind of knew what healing modalities and plant medicines, before it was mainstream discussion. I was looking for new tools and alternatives, or at least integrative approaches to health and wellness for my own kids. I'm one of those moms that had children who were struggling, and those traditional medicines that we were encouraged to take by our system, by the doctors and the teachers and the pressure you get in society. Medicate your child if they're out of the box. Medicate yourself if you're not feeling integrated with the world. All right, that's the lesson we've been hearing over and over. It wasn't making sense, and it was making my kids worse. And I started a mission and a journey to get them well, because that's what parents do. That's what anybody who cares about someone does. They're like, well, what else is there that can help, and what can make a difference, and what won't hurt them, and what won't have side effects that can be debilitating. And CBD and plant-based medicine in general is where I started to look. So my company started in 2011. I incorporated in 2011, and I started with aromatherapy because I believe in the ancient wisdom of plant-based medicine as a nice complement to anything and everything that we choose to incorporate in our daily lives. And from there, it was a natural segue to looking at CBD, which is another plant-based medicine approach, you know, if you will, almost a shamanistic and earth-based, like getting back to the roots of what makes people well. And that's what my company is founded on, ancient wisdom with modern science. And eventually, proof is in the pudding, as my late grandmother used to say. My kids are off Western meds. And now I've been on a mission for years to share this information, to connect with people, to encourage people to find out for themselves what can work and make a difference in your lives and your wellness, and how can I be of service. That's my goal. And the book came out of that life and that experience, because the one thing that was really missing, even if you do stumble upon CBD, and we'll talk about what that is education. There was no guidebook. There was nothing that took all those different pieces of information and cut through the noise and cut through the nonsense, of which there's a lot in this industry, and just simply laid it out. And that's what I wrote. That's what the ABCs of CBD, the essential guide for parents and regular folks too, is all about. It's not just the plant, it's also the plant's purpose, how we are in society, how we're treating plant-based medicine, what we understand about cannabinoids, where we are in the social justice aspect of this plant, and that's really important to me. I'm also an activist and an advocate. So,
well, before a year ago, I really didn't even know what CBD was.
Sure.
And I mentioned yesterday that a girlfriend and I were in a restaurant. We thought we were talking above people's heads, you know, like CBD, you know, THC. And a woman and her husband who were sitting next to me leaned over and said, listen, I didn't mean to eavesdrop on your conversation, but the best place to get CBD is a place that she mentioned on the Lower East Side of New York City.
Uh-huh.
You know, I can't evaluate the truth of what she said because I really had no understanding of what CBD is. So can you help our boomers understand what is CBD?
Okay. So CBD stands for, it's not some mystical word, it is short for cannabidiol. And cannabidiol is the name of one of a whole bunch of cannabinoids that naturally exist in cannabis and hemp. And right there's a little confusion because people think cannabis and hemp are the same or different. They're actually different versions of the same species. The cannabis, typical what we associate with marijuana or pot, would be the plant that has higher THC levels. It's developed, and usually we think of it more for, at least in historical context, of the stuff that gets you high, because that's really the THC. THC and CBD are the two primary cannabinoids, but there are actually, like in the genetic cultivations of the plants that I use for my products, there are 140 cannabinoids. So there are a whole bunch of them that we don't even yet fully understand how they work together, why they work together, what they're doing. But all the cannabinoids and all the plant enzymes are really designed to be together. So CBD is the opposite of THC in terms of, if THC gets you high, CBD takes the high away. So actually, interestingly, there are a lot of new approaches to treating addiction, because we all know that traditional pharma got into a big hot mess with opioid addiction, right? But any addiction. So it's interesting to see how these plant pieces fit together and can actually help you get over other forms of addiction and illness and issue. And that's really why there's such an interesting look at what is CBD and how does it work, and do we need the THC and all of that. I cover all this stuff in my book at length, but that's the nutshell. THC has the euphoria, CBD does not. It's antipsychotic, it's non-psychoactive, you cannot be addicted, and there are no known side effects.
Why does it work then for inflammation?
Because CBD, of all the cannabinoids, at the core, if you remember one thing about CBD, besides that it's non-psychoactive, right, is that it's anti-inflammatory. That's like taking Advil without any concern about how, because, you know, there's some issues. I love Advil. I grew up on it, but I don't take it anymore, ever. I don't take Tylenol, ever. I'm done with all those because I use CBD as an anti-inflammatory agent. And why is that so important? Because if you look at the shared symptomology, that means what's the one thing that is in common with every illness, challenge, state of dis-ease, which is what I call it. If you look at one element that exists across the board, regardless of who you are, how you were raised, what you believe in, your body will respond to stimulus, and negative stimulus is still stimulus, right?
Right.
With inflammation. Inflammation is the root of every little problem we have. So if you can look for a natural anti-inflammatory agent that can work with no contraindications, that means we don't have anything on this planet that does that. That means that if you're on heart medication, if you're a diabetic, if you're on you know, the medicine that they put kids on for ADHD and anxiety and depression and, you know, all that, CBD will not mess with that medication. And it has no side effects, and it's anti-inflammatory. I mean, right there, and it doesn't get you high. That's what CBD does. That's why it's so important for us.
So is that, okay, because it doesn't get us high. So that's why it's also now available in stores. I mean, technically,
yes, yes,
but I've heard that it is legal in all the states. Not
so
true.
Here's where it gets super confusing. And trust me, do you know how many, oh my gosh, I read more pieces of information and reports and studies. I also follow or am a member of the trade organizations. The Marijuana Policy Project is great to follow their info. Drug Policy Alliance, DPA.org. In Westchester County, actually, July 26th, we have a really important event on marijuana, policing, and cannabis, the Westchester Report, side topic. But the point is that, no, CBD is not legal in all 50 states. There are states that it technically should be by definition, because to make CBD legal, it depends what plants it's derived from. So CBD can come from, remember, it comes from both cannabis and hemp. If it's a hemp-derived CBD, it technically should be considered fully legal, but it is not yet, because we have Jeff Sessions in office still. To be honest, all cannabinoids are still technically federally illegal. And people are like, what? Then how can it be for sale? And how is it that we can use it? And I understand the problem. But we have some protections in place for businesses like mine, where the federal government's not really allowed to, nor is anyone really interested in wasting money going after companies that are putting CBD out. But there's a little bit of a tap dance or tango really going on here between the federal government, between where our legislation is, between what bills are getting approved and what the language says and how we consider the extracts of these plants. And CBD is one of the extracts. So it's not so simple to say, yeah, go on Amazon, pick up a bottle, which, by the way, I would never recommend anyway for other reasons. You don't know where that stuff's coming from. But you really do need to know if the company's licensed, if they're protected, if they test well. Let's worry more about that. But don't just assume that it's always legal and that those companies you're buying from are always going to be there, because they may not be legal companies to begin with.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because you just threw a little wrench into my understanding of.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to clarify, not make it harder.
No. I mean, it doesn't matter. We want to know.
Yeah.
You know,
and we should know. We should know.
In fact, many people in the older market are suffering from inflammation-based or source issues. You know, joint pain,
right? Rheumatoid arthritis, osteoporosis.
They're associated with old people problems, but these are problems that everybody has, you know, I mean, athletes, what have you, and they're not age dependent.
No, not at all. Not anymore, because our environment is so heavily toxic. Actually, rheumatoid arthritis is showing up. Degenerative diseases are showing up whole generations earlier. And there are teenagers with rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, that's a whole different, we could go on for hours about what's wrong with the planet that's happening. But yeah, let's just say everybody's struggling with some form of inflammation, some worse than others, depending on age, where they live, what their diet is, all kinds of factors, for sure.
So let's take something that happened with a friend of mine recently who is suffering from, it's not clear, but it's joint related. It's inflammation, it's pain, difficulty moving about.
Mm-hmm.
She saw a doctor
Mm-hmm.
who is authorized to make a recommendation about CBD.
Mm-hmm.
He purchased online what he recommended, which were CBD capsules.
Okay.
And then I got involved because I have been in sessions where you have talked, where there's a discussion about microdosing, whether you start with a lot or you start with a little.
Right.
And just the orientation that I'm coming from, you start with a little and you build up too, because you don't know.
Start low, go slow. That's the rule of thumb whenever by the way, which makes sense for any health protocol. Until you know how you're going to respond to something, I appreciate wisdom that comes from people who are educated in the forms of their education, whatever that looks like. Our doctors are Western medicine trained. They are not integratively trained. They are not nutritionally trained. They are not holistically trained. They're not. So you have to sort of become your own best advocate and expert, and you have to do your own research. That's why I wrote a book, to help people get basic information so they can feel empowered to make the right decisions for the health and wellness of themselves and their loved ones. But it's interesting when that doctor, right, says, hey, go buy this online. I'm curious right away, what kind of doctor is it? Generally speaking, the ones that are willing to even go there and recommend, at least they're honest enough, some to say, you don't know what you don't know. That's one of my expressions. You don't know what you don't know. So if you are a professional and you are in the position of speaking your truth, you better base it on actual either evidence, anecdote, testimony, experience, knowledge, research, something. Not just a rep, because this is happening a lot, especially the doctors that are so far recommending. They're recommending products or from companies, let's call them MLMs, multi-level marketing, affiliate marketing companies. Honestly, I would stay away from those. I really, really would, for a few reasons.
How would you know? I mean,
you would know based on if they charge you a fee to join, if there's like a membership fee, like for $39 you can start. And as much as I appreciate the grassroots approach to sharing information, which is really probably the good side or the plus side of how we look at affiliate marketing, but the problem is with any rep, a rep for a company has memorized literature from that company. There's a brochure. I'll tell you, it reminds me of the story I think I mentioned yesterday. I went into a spiritual shop. This is a little while back now, and I was talking about I was going to pre-sell some of my books, say, hey, do you want to carry this book here? Because I'm also a metaphysical healer, and so I love that kind of stuff. And the lady behind the counter was not the manager, but she was one of the psychic readers who also works there or something. And she said, oh, she saw the back of my card was about CBD, my company. And she said, oh, you do CBD? I do CBD. And the way she said it was very sweet. And I said, oh, and before I even could say anything further, she proceeded to give me what was clearly a memorized kind of script of, it's highly anti-inflammatory and it's also very good for and da-da-da-da. And the tonality, the language, it was oversimplified. It was vague. And she didn't know who she was talking to, which was, fine. And I said, honey, I really appreciate this, but let me make one thing clear. I'm not a rep for a company. I am the company. And I built this company based on years of experience research. I know a lot of people in this industry, and it was not an ego statement as much as a please don't start doing that, because people who don't know the difference between products and farms and what to look for or what to ask about or how to test it themselves, that's misleading, and I'm not okay with that. I don't care if it's CBD or any other supplement. Please don't do that, and that's kind of a little bit of my issue.
So, okay. So be careful when it comes to simply responding to, someone's pitch about their product.
Right. Don't respond to the hype without the education behind it, because what the affiliate marketing programs tend to do is put out a product with really expensive prices. And again, how would you know if you've never even taken the time to look things up? Now, that's my life. I live, breathe, eat, and sleep everything about this industry, and I will never stop. And whether you buy from me or not is not the point. Get the book and be educated and be empowered. And that's my mission. That's my purpose.
Okay.
So I think there's a little bit of a difference in that. You know, don't buy hype from anybody about anything until you determine, because you know basic facts. Like if I ask that rep, where's the farm? Is this industrial imported? What country is it imported from? What lab does the testing? Do you have the latest small batch testing report from that lab to show no toxins, pesticides, solvent residue, mold, right? Nobody knows to ask those questions.
That's what I was going to say. This is really my question.
Yeah.
So to continue that story that I was posing about my friend, she placed the order that was recommended by the doctor, and the product arrives. And then I look at it to see what's in the product, and I noticed that that in the capsules there's flour, some sort of cellulose. No, starch.
Starch in the capsules? Yeah, that, you know.
There were 4 ingredients. I was expecting to simply see, I was expecting to only see CBD, I guess, you know, the isolate or something, and nothing more. But the vegetable cellulose, I guess that was the capsule itself.
I'm okay with a vegetable with a plant cellulose. I prefer for things to be, you know, I'm personally of the GMO-free organic whole food approach. You know, the way nature grows something is probably the form we want to be as close to ingesting it or taking it or smoke, whatever the form is, right? That makes sense on just a common sense level. When you have more than 3-4 ingredients, and when the first ingredient isn't the CBD oil, right there, that's a red flag for me. Starches and the other, and guar gums and the other, and natural flavors and all that, nope, don't even go.
Am I expecting to see CBD oil inside a capsule, or am I going to see a CBD powder inside a capsule?
Depends on the company. Our capsules are, you see the oil, you can tell that it's in the capsule, but it's oil in a capsule. And that's why I said the plant cellulose, you know, sure, the capsule itself, but I like plant versus traditional cellulose because of the cleanliness of the properties and all that. Yeah, so like any supplement, if you've got too many ingredients on it, and if what you really think you're taking is lower down on that ingredient list, and if there are things you can't pronounce and they look like long chains of chemical names, please walk away from that bottle. Do not walk, just run away from that bottle, because that's not, you know, that by law, and this is true of all nutraceutical companies, usually the companies, let's say you go to like a GNC or something and you pick up a bottle of whole food supplement or a vitamin, they only need to have 17% of what they say in the label. That was the standard I remembered from years ago when I first started looking at nutraceuticals. And that's disturbing. So as we already know, we're smart enough now as consumers to know what you see is not always what you get, what that label can hide things. They're very careful, and that's about authenticity and transparency and the integrity of the company. And when they keep things vague, when it looks like these, oh, that doesn't look so bad, but you don't really still know what you're getting, where you're getting it from. One of my concerns right now is, besides the affiliate marketing, which when a company or somebody comes up to me in the first sentence, besides, oh, I do CBD, you know, that kind of thing, I'm like, uh-oh, here we go, here comes the pitch. The other thing that I love is when someone says, this is the best hemp oil in the world, bar none. Okay, what? You can't even remotely say that, because you don't personally know every hemp. I don't even personally know every hemp source in the world. That's kind of silly and a little overreaching. And right there, it's a turnoff for me. I won't even look at a company, because people are asking. I've become sort of the unofficial good housekeeping seal in some ways for what people are doing. I get other people who are shopping in other stores who call or reach out to me to say, what do we know about this? And I
don't know you. Let's say I don't know you, like most of us don't.
Yeah.
I'm a consumer. I have this bottle, and I'm trying to understand
if it's okay or not.
Yeah, and whether I should put this bottle in, what's in this bottle in my body.
So assuming you haven't read the book yet, let's hope that you remember 3 things. Look at the oil itself. If you can't see the ingredients, if they're being masked in a capsule that's hiding it, I get a little concerned about that. If the oil, I'm going to show you an oil. This is kind of what it should look like. So do you see, I hope that's clear. Pretty, The viscosity is nice. It's not, doesn't look like water, doesn't run. It's not too runny. It's not too light in appearance. It's not too murky or dark in appearance. I remember going to one of our professional organizations, an event in New York City. And again, a lot of people come up and say, oh, I have the best oil and I'm getting mine from Germany and I'm getting my grow from, you know, I honestly still prefer, especially as we're making great headway through the Hemp Industries Association with those bills that are up right now, to let hemp be a new agricultural commodity again for the United States. That's going to be great for us in the CBD industry. What I get nervous about with imported hemp is also the carbon footprint. Too many steps, too many people, too many pieces of processing by the time it gets all the way to you in a capsule. So I try tinctures, I try things, you know, I'll feel it out. And I took a little bit of this tincture that was supposed to be amazing. First of all, the color looked a little brownish, tinted, too dark, looked a little muddy almost, if you will. And the taste was all coconut oil. I could taste nothing but coconut oil, which means they're hiding it. Also be mindful, they sometimes hide a lower quality CBD oil in a terpene base, which means terpenes are the parts of plants that make them smell nice. Lavender, pine, citrus, right? My original line is aromatherapy. So I love essential oils, but I don't do either affiliate marketing. I get mine sourced differently and cleanly. And I think the point is that if you can't taste the oil, basically just the oil, if you're, let's say you take a capsule, if you're burping it, not to be gross, but that's a good sign that that's not hitting your system well, and there's probably something else in it, either too much oil or they didn't extract it perfectly cleanly or well. Like, your system will always tell you the truth. But I really would prefer people get basic information before you even put one in your mouth, because we need to remember a basic fact about how these plants are designed in nature. Their root system, especially hemp, right? We're talking about hemp from CBD from hemp mostly, unless you're in a state where you're on a medical card or it's a fully licensed program, we don't have options. So let's assume for this conversation, we're talking about CBD derived from hemp. Hemp is what's called a remediation plant. So if you have an area where there's a natural disaster like Chernobyl, and you now have a really toxic level going on in the environment, they plant hemp, which soaks up those toxins right out of the earth. That's great for environmental sustainable causes. It's not so great if some of that hemp has been grown and then is extracted from a field or a practice that isn't organic farming practices. You know, all of the stuff that's junky in the earth will come up in that root system. That's why knowing the source material, checking those lab reports really matters, because you're going to absorb so many levels of junk that could really make you much worse than what you're taking it for in the first place.
Where would I get the lab reports?
You can ask. A company should be able to show you. If you Google online, that's the other thing. If a web page for a company, let's say, because somebody's going to look it up before you buy online, I hope they take one extra step. They don't just click to buy on Amazon or something without saying, hey, I wonder who these guys are. If you can't find them, if you can't see that they have any kind of, say, please ask us, we're happy to show you our batch testing reports or our lab reports, or here's who we use, or all of that. There just should be this level of transparency that I find is lacking. And a lot of us are working to change that. I'm certainly not the only person out there that cares about this. Again, the trade organizations are working very hard to create systems, and I've been asked to join some of these programs and groups that are saying, let's make a system where everybody, if you're going to sell, you got to meet these standards. You have to show that you're meeting these standards. You've been vetted. Why not? Why not do that?
I don't think that I even knew before just a moment ago that I should look for lab results before I purchase the recommended product. I don't think
like a big step. So, right. Why would we think to do that? Because we put our faith in whatever someone else tells us. Now, if you trust your source, if you trust the person who's making the recommendation, there's no better way to really refer things than by word of mouth of a trusted source. And that trusted source may have done the research for you. That's why I wrote a book, so I can give people information that they can have in their back pocket. They don't need to rely on me. but hopefully they'll know, like, I'm out here doing this every day for a reason. And I hope that that translates. I hope there are more of us who will join these organizations and become the voices of expertise, if you will, that can speak and share and learn. The more of us that get educated, the more of us can share what's really good and what isn't so good.
So let's go back to that same bottle. The bottle says there's 1,000 milligrams inside. And so now the question is, how can I make sense of my dosage by what the total milligrams in a bottle?
So 1,000 first of all, are we talking the capsules or a tincture?
Capsules. Let's talk about a tincture.
Okay, so I've never seen, honestly, except.
Oh, I made that up.
Yeah, no. I do. I start at 1,000 milligrams, 1,500, and 3,000. And 1,500 is really the bottle that I personally use. It's the stuff I give 2 drops of to my dog when he had seizures, which he doesn't have. It's the stuff I gave to my kids. I go between 1,500 and 3,000 milligrams, which is a lot of milligrams in a bottle.
When you drop 2 drops in, what is that dosage?
Like, this is how I, please do not report me to CPS again, guys. By the way, that's happened so many times. It's in the book. All right, so here's how I'm doing it, right? This is about, I'm squeezing out some. That's about half a dropper. I take less than this in the morning. Put it under my tongue, hold it a couple seconds, I swallow. That's how you take your tincture. At night, if I'm having trouble sleeping, I might take a little more. So if typically when you go to a store, and by the way, you mentioned that Walmart and some of these big box retailers are starting to carry CBD. They're testing it out. They're not really going to keep it on the shelves yet. You've seen that now. We've seen it a couple of times, Target and Walmart. They'll be out and then they'll disappear. They're testing the market. There are a couple of big trade shows and symposiums that are sort of retailers are looking and getting ready. But again, until the landscape makes it very clean, even and legal across the board, we're not there yet. So don't expect it to show up yet in your big box retailers. You're better off still finding a source. Most of us have to do it online or live events. So getting back to that tincture. The majority of what you're going to find on a commercial level for tincture, for example, is going to be somewhere between 2 and 350 milligrams, not 1,000 milligrams per bottle. And the reason they do that is because let's assume it's a good company and they've got a nice product, but they're going to keep it low enough so you're going to buy a lot of bottles. Because at the end of the day, that's a retail strategy. That's a strategy for, hey, this is great. We are helping people, but we're going to make a lot of money doing it. I get that. I have nothing to say about that, but that's not what I do, because I know from personal experience that that is not enough strength in that bottle to really do much. And I don't want to wait 7 bottles later until my kids' anxiety levels drop, until I have a beautiful friend in Indiana who's got a lot of RA issues, and she's my back-end biz op tech goddess. She's an amazing woman, but she's, sometimes really, really hurts because she's been in tech since 1970. And, way before women were doing this. So her joints get bad, her wrists get bad. If I'm going to send her my product, it's because I know when she takes a little bit of it, she's going to feel better. Right? That's her personal experience with it. If I sent her 250 milligrams in a bottle, she'd have to go through like 100 bottles to get the effect of what a stronger strength product will do. And that's my philosophy. Can we please do this right? Make it clean, care about the people you're helping, and let's all just raise this community and this industry up. Let's raise it up, because we're all here to help each other. So that's my issue with tinctures. It's too low, or it's not clean enough, or it's not the CBD first. It's maybe more oil than it should be.
Well, I know that the stats from Headset, or, say that boomers, we are the primary buyers of tinctures. It's a small piece, but it's a huge market. And I think that with everyone living longer, that these will come to be an integral part of treatment for, for all of us,
I really hope so. I really hope so, because you're right about this. I don't think it's even a boomer situation. The fact is, We mentioned earlier rheumatoid arthritis showing up in 13-year-olds. Are you kidding? We've never before been such a sick care focused world. We are over medicated and we are underserved. And I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, thank God for advances in science and Western medicine. My late father was a neuroscientist, an early one. And you know, the unfortunate part is, you know, here I am, I'm the sandwich generation. I'm a Gen Xer. So I've got the kids who are struggling, and I've already lost both my parents to diseases or states of dis-ease that we know cannabis could have helped. My father died from complications of an autoimmune disorder, and my mother died from cancer. And when you watch people you love suffer and struggle, I mean, we're going to insist it. It's the shopper mom. And I don't care what age that shopper mom is, whether we're boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, it doesn't matter. When you love someone and they're hurting and you know that there's something out there that you can get educated on and can make a difference, you are not going to leave any stone unturned. You're going after that information.
Well, I agree with you. And I also feel that as a boomer, older, midlifer, whatever you want to call yourself, that the quality of life as we age is important. So I'm interested, you know, I see where there is some compassion as it relates to end of life. But I believe that, you know, the quality of our life should also be, we should be allowed to make decisions ourselves about
vibrant.
The quality of our life.
Yes, you should be able to live in a state of full vibrancy and wellness all the way through your life experience. Absolutely. You know, when I look at my partner is technically a baby boomer, he's a little bit older than I am, but he's going to hate me for saying that. So I never said that on air, ever. But the point is his father's really struggling. And remember, I lost both mine. And I look at how many prescriptions this man has been given. And I look at the state of condition that his body is in. And yet, you know, that mind is still, can be completely there. And then you watch it slip away and comes, it's frustrating because the fact is we know that CBD can work. There are enough medical studies out there. There's more research that will come. We must deschedule it. We must make it available, but we must make it really good, strong, and clean. And if it isn't, it's not going to not only help our loved ones, it's going to actually potentially hurt them. And that's my issue with making sure that whatever you take, you know where it's coming from, you know how much. So let's get back to, you mentioned dosage. I want to talk a little bit about that. So it depends on the product. Tincture is a different kind of dosage level than a capsule because capsules are supposedly pre-measured for you. So they assume that, like I carry capsules, they're 10 milligrams, which is low, 25 or 50. A good daily dose for what I would recommend, and just my experience, is at least 25 to 50 milligrams a day for an average human being. Here's my problem with dosage in general. I also have cream because I think it's an inside out and outside in. I think you do all of it. And I do aromatherapy that's infused because the one thing that everybody seems to be missing is that we are not just physical bodies and brain chemistry. We're mind, body, spirit. And if you don't hit all of that and work on all of that, something's going to get out of whack and out of balance. So my products are meant to integrate all of that. But when you look at dosage and that word, what it means is we're thinking along a system that was designed to create a protocol for giving medication based on your age, your body type, your gender, and I don't think that's enough. So even though we still follow that system logically, I think we have to dig a little more intuitively and go deeper than that, because you can take two people, two, let's say adult males, 190 pounds, 5'10", and they both have the same disease, right? You give them the same medication. One of them gets better, one of them doesn't. Or one tolerates the medicine well, one has a bad reaction. One lives, one dies. You know, why is that possible? How is that possible if the dosage, quote unquote, is correct? And it's because no two human beings are the same. In fact, I take it one step further. My background is clergy. So when you talk about showing up and life experience, I've been there for 20 years in the most intimate expressions of people's lives. I know when they hurt. I know when they're reaching out for connection. I know when they're going through a transition from a physical child into a coming of age, into a marriage, into a passing of life, end of life care. I've done all that. And that's that's what really informs my understanding of what dosage is and what medicine is and what wellness looks like. That's where I really come from. And it simply isn't enough to just trust someone else to say, oh, it's 25 milligrams a day, and that's enough for your condition, for your body. We are all spiritual beings having a human experience. So there are going to be levels and subtlety and nuance for how you personally adjust to whatever it is you put in your body. And that's why dosage only gets you so far. Understanding the core information of where this CBD is being created and why, that matters more. Then the rule of thumb is start low and go slow. And feel into it and trust your own gut and do your own research and say, capsules are good for my lifestyle. I don't love the taste of a tincture. Good. You figure that out. Make sure it's a clean capsule and take what works for you. Build up slowly. See what your tolerance is. The trick about CBD is that it doesn't work like a Western medication because it is not. So we're used to saying, I've got a headache. I take 2 Advil, headache goes away, right? This will work to an extent, but it's not really how the endocannabinoid system works in our body. And I should take a step back and explain. Why does CBD even work? We know it works on inflammation because all mammals are wired with what's called an endocannabinoid receptor system. So we're also wired with like an opiate receptor system, right? The problem with opiates is that opiate receptor system can shut down the other systems. So you stop breathing, you die. It's horrible what happens. But the cannabinoid, the endocannabinoid system, does not shut any other system. It regulates your other systems. It's actually the part that if you have an adrenal or a thyroid issue and you're too sluggish, it'll speed you up. If you're too hyper, it'll calm you down. It knows how to adjust your other systems. That's the beauty of what CBD does because we're wired to receive all of those cannabinoids. Does that make sense?
Yes. So let's end with this. What's the difference between an isolate and a full spectrum?
There's a lot of information about that because, right, some of the products like will have, in my aromatherapy, I use an isolate, and it's the only time I ever would do that because I don't want the other terpenes and the other factors of the plant to overshadow, it's a microdose, what the essential oil, those proprietary blends do. But for everything else, and I do mean this, everything else, your tincture, your capsules, your body butters, your, whatever you take, I am a full hardcore advocate for full spectrum because, again, going back to the basics, an isolate is what it sounds like. It's the isolated CBD that's extracted from the plant. And even in medical marijuana, by the way, if you have a card, my daughter does have a medical card, my son does not. So I do both in my house. Right? I'm an equal opportunity marijuana mama. And the isolate in medical programs, they take out CBD and they extract the THC and they re-splice the things together to get your exact measured dosage because that's the Western mentality for how we dose and treat. But that's not how the plant's created. So that's like a little bit of a Frankenstein approach to giving you a full benefit from a cannabis product. Full spectrum oil from hemp is exactly what it sounds like. It's all the cannabinoids. It's the extraction process that keeps everything intact. But the hemp itself, the plant itself, has less, by law, it has to be considered legal hemp, has to be less than 0.3% THC. And that's not enough in the body or the brain to create any euphoria. There's no psychoactive response when it's that low. But whole plant, all that beautiful oil with the bioavailability that comes from being richly, enzymatically rich and all that. That's why I'm a big advocate for full spectrum oil. If you only take out one piece, does that really work the same way? Not in my experience, not in how I intuitively feel it, not in how I've seen it show up in my kids' responses to this, plant-based medicine wisdom, the shamanic approach to wellness.
Wow. Well, it's almost 11:40. I'm thrilled that
we go, girl. I love it. I love this.
I'm thrilled that we actually got over the technical difficulties.
Oh, I hope so.
There's been tons of information that you've shared. Please tell us where we can get your product, where we can learn more about what you're doing. We can learn more about your new product that's going to launch. That's Shira Synergy, right?
Shira Synergy is already out. That's the name of my company. Yeah, that's I have the body butter, my aromatherapy line, and the tinctures and capsules. That's all part of the consumer product side. And the rest of it is the Shira Adler part of Shira Synergy. I'm the founder and CEO of Shira Synergy. But I love going to conferences. I love going to events. I love educating about this industry, about these plants, about why it matters and how to use it. I have events coming up. If you're in the area, you can find me actually going on a book tour in the fall in California, but I'm all over the place. And if a group wants me to come and talk about this, you reach out to me through my website, shiraadler.com, or on social at the one Shira Adler, because there's another Shira Adler and she wouldn't give up her Twitter site, but okay. So it's THE, the number 1, and my name. And the book, The ABCs of CBD, in its new form with a new foreword and a couple quotes. I'm very honored to work with some medical marijuana doctors who all love and refer to my book. And that's such an honor. That means that whatever I wrote down, they can use it as a guide to help educate their customers and patients. And that's a beautiful thing. That's on Amazon. So however you reach me, please do reach out. And I have events coming up in New York City at the Soho House with Athletes for Care and Marvin Washington on July 16th. I'll be Love the Canna Gather and Women Grow events. I'm usually at both of those monthly just to meet and mingle, and have Canatopia, beautiful conference coming up in Harlem on July 28th, and the Drug Policy Alliance event July 26th. These are all New York City based or Westchester based events. And you can find out all about that on shiraadler.com as well.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And I thank all of our viewers who joined us today to share in this conversation. I hope that you will spend some time on the Esther Hayes website because it's mad wonderful.
Their goddesses, love those girls.
Yes. And do visit my website, cannaboomer.net, where my focus is the older market. We'll be back this month to focus on some questions that boomers who've been hiding in the shadows. You know, I want you to come out, talk about it, and learn so that you can improve the quality of your life. Okay. See ya. I'll see you soon. All right. Thanks so much, too.